being here and all the organization for inviting me. I'm like really amazed of everything that's happening because I need to say that I'm a little bit different from all of you because I'm not a type designer. And that's something that I realized when I arrived here. Didn't expect to be like the last one, more or less, the unique one. So talking with the people here about what I was going to say, I realized that I'm more or less like your client, the user. So I'm like giving you feedback about my experiences working with virtual reality experiences and augmented reality. So before talking about the future and what's happening, let's talk a little bit about what happened historically. Okay, historically, typography was like the first printed media, yeah? And then other things appeared, okay? Then appear images, photographs, color, even links or QR codes. So each time we are like adding more features, but type is always there, okay? So what's happening? Type is there, but it's evolving. It's adapting, and not just in their form, but in their uses. So that's what we are facing nowadays. We are facing a new media, a new language, and therefore a new typography model. So that's a little bit what I'm passionate about and what I would like to share with you, not just talking about typography, but learning a little bit what will be the future and what's the role that typography could be taking in this new model, in this new communication media. I'm talking about blending two powerful tools that are creativity or design and technology, reaching like a new level in communication. Because also in visual language, as in words of Richard Gregory, the consumer is not habituated, is not looking or he didn't understand the equivalent to an orthographic mistake. So we have a lot to explore and we are like free, we have no boundaries. So let's see how far can we go as this conference is about. So let me introduce you in this new experience, in this new world, from the 2D or the framed world we are used to the insights or of the virtual Type-Ality universe, for calling it that way. So let's begin with the basics. First of all, I will want to ask you, how many of you had ever tried a virtual reality experience? Can you raise your hands, please? Okay, it's always good to know. Because you're a very techy audience, but not always is the same. So just for me, for my own analytics, and also for knowing what I can talk about. So a lot of you, even if you have never tried a VR experience, for sure you have a Facebook account, okay? And you may have seen these 360 videos that you can pick and drag around, okay, and move. Okay, so this is reality, but it's not virtual reality, okay? Because the difference between a selfie that I can take right now, for example, is just that you're changing the frame. You're picking more environment around you. But it's not an experience. That's the thing. So it's like if you change the lens of a camera or something like that, you're capturing just more. So what makes virtual reality so real, but virtual, is this immersion concept, that what really transforms the concept of being experiencing something, not just being looking at. And this is a concept that is compulsory at the time we're designing a brand new experience. If not, we are just showing off something in another format. So we have the tools for a new storytelling, and for this new visual language, typography is really, really important. So this is a little bit an example of what is to be immersed, and what something is not working, you will feel like Neo in Matrix, no? When he sees this black cat. So that's why it's very important, the immersion concept, and that everything has to match with all what you're expecting of the reality, even if it's virtual. So once we have settled this first concept about immersion, let's go to the second part. And the first stop is the canvas, okay? Because a bunch of new software is being developed and plugins are still evolving, but the most important thing you have to have in mind is the canvas, is where are you working? And it's very different from what we are used to. But even if you pick another program or another plugin, the canvas will be the same. And this is in the equirectangular format. This is the most typical image of an equirectangular format that most of you are used to. And you can have it in 69:1. But the important thing is that you're seeing the whole picture. So you can place whatever you want in any part of the frame. Even if it's stereoscopic or mono, it doesn't mind. The important thing is seeing everything. For example, this is another kind of format, cube map. Even, for example, in this case, you have different distortions, different deformations, but at the end, you are seeing everything. But the problem is that even if you are seeing everything, you don't know where the user is looking at, because then he is only going to see one part at the same time. You don't have a top or bottom or left or right. So even if, for example, in this case, the screenwriter is picking the information in one part or making the scene in one part of the everything, it's not real. It's not what then the user is always going to see. So you don't have boundaries, you don't have limits. Depends always of the user's gaze, that is where he's looking at. So in this context, what is important to work with type is that a few pixels could be also a huge distance. So that's what you need to have everything in mind, no? Because you can move something from the center a little bit, and the user wouldn't understand what's happening, because it will be in the other complete side. And people would miss things. Because as a matter of fact, people spend 75% of their time in the front 90 degrees of the video. So you need also to encourage them and use the elements around for guiding the user. In this context, typography is very interesting because, in this example, we have line-side typography as the element that is moving always to guide the user to a different point of action, where is the important thing. No? This was a project made with the Spanish TV, public TV, with the innovation department, and they asked us, for example, to experience a rehearsal of the orchestra at the Royal Theatre. So it's like a kind of documentary, and information it's appearing while you are looking to a certain instrument that is playing in that moment or thing. If you don't have that, you won't know where have to look, because there's a lot of also information of other parts. So the thing is that you have to have all of this in mind, so you will have to think about this like an architect and designer and user experience and type designer, a little bit of everything you have to have it in mind. And once we have that, it's when we ask ourselves, okay, how can we integrate more type in these environments? What are the differences between using type in the elements we have done until now and now? There are these three pillars that, in general, you can use it for designing in every context, in screens or paper or whatever. But here we have to take care of them because they behave in a different way. So, for example, size. Okay, you always have to take care of the size of the text, but at the end you are placing something just in front of your eyes, so it's bigger. And I have a perfect example of this. When I was a kid, I had this book called Charlotte Discovers the Impressionist, where a little girl goes to a museum and she's in front of a Impressionist painting. So she didn't understand anything because it was just an abstract stroke. And she realized that when she go some meters back, then this beautiful painting appears. and she understands that. So that's what is happening with size in VR. But in the other way, okay? So because you're first working like this in the whole picture, and you have to design the whole picture, but then when you place the headset or the display in front of your eyes, everything changes. I mean, so size, you can't measure size with the dot points. You will have to measure it in distance, okay? Size is like equivalent to distance. And about color, okay, if I ask you to think about a pure minimal website or something like that, you can have it in mind, but like, I don't know, a newspaper or something like that, everything white, and I ask you to turn it into a space, you will have in mind something similar to this, Matrix. You will see I love reference of films. So you will imagine this like a screen, but if you turn this really into a 360 environment, you will have something more similar to this. It's very bright, your eyes will hurt, and the experience will be ruined at the second 23rd or something like that. So we have to be very careful about design with the palettes, the colors, the size. It seems like common sense, but really that when you're fighting with all of this, it's not that common sense. It's not that simple, okay? You need a while for habituate and get used to all these classic or simple things. And in this context, the third thing that I mentioned is movement. If we want people to feel immersed, they will have to be comfortable. So this is also related to another common problem. It's the motion sickness. The motion sickness is associated to when your body is not experiencing the same as your eyes, as your senses. It's not matching, so we lose our equilibrium. And for example, if we are seated, but we are experiencing a roller coaster experience, we will feel like awful, and it will be horrible if we are not used to. So our brain tends to suffer. For this, we need to take care of the movements. For example, imagine these beautiful Barbarella credits with all the letters dancing around. This is great, but if you place this kind of movement or this kind of typography in a VR experience, it will feel more like Harry Potter here, suffering a little bit. So, as you can see, there's a lot to be aware, a lot that seems pretty basic, but when you start fighting with this, every little thing is a challenge. And you have to train yourself to work in this distorted space, and even if this is also very basic, there's a lot for developing, also for you, no? When I was hearing all of you talking here, it was like, oh my God, we can do this, and for sure we can improve this in VR and typography and blah, 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 blah. So later, I will ask you also for some feedback from you, no? And we need changes in how we understand typography because of this, because we are not, we don't have like a civilization, a visual language that is totally defined. So if it's not defined for the usual mediums, it's less defined for what is coming next. So forget about what I previously said about not dancing letters around. Why not? Why we don't search for another thing, another kind of development for doing that, no? Instead of looking what's the correct form, we need to design or rethink what the problems are to avoid them. For example, the part of the subtitles or credits. It's possible to put subtitles or credits, because you don't have, we said that we don't have a top or bottom or something like that. The front is just the gaze where the user is looking at. So what could be a solution? For example, this is one of the solutions we have been working in, just placing the things around the user, 2, 3, 4 times, depending on. It may be a solution. Another solution is working with the developers and sticking the text in the front camera that follows the user when he changes his look. So it's try to innovate and search solutions in this kind of way, no? Because at the end, the user is the center of it. The user is not just the audience, as in other media, is part of it, is the main character. So we need to design for him. This was, for example, an scheme that we made for an application when you have to take care about the field of view, if the user is going to be seated, if he is going to be walking around. But at the end, this is also related to the technology. And at this point, creativity and technology are going hand by hand. So, for example, we need to realize that the content consuming behaviors are changing. Why? Because if now we have a display for VR that is with a lot of cables and links, it will be seated. But in the next generation, that could be like in 3 months, headsets will be, for example, standalone. So the user could move. So the experience will be different. So depending also of that, all the things that we are designing, it will change. So I can't say this is the correct form for it, or this is not going to change. It's all the time going for more and more change. And also related to the technology, for type is this: forget the light, and bold would be your new best friend. Why does this mean? As the technology is not evolving at the same time as the content, we can design, but we are not going to be able to see it. Okay? So, for example, what I'm saying that about light typography, because if we have this rectangular format that we said before, just the equatorial line, it will be with the real size. But the top of the bottom, the 38, 40 pixels will become 1 pixel when you close the sphere. It will be just 1 pixel in the top and 1 pixel in the bottom, and that's it. So with these deformations, it's impossible to work with details, okay? And we can do anything more than waiting to the technology to still advance, okay? Because at the end also, for example, we have prepared videos or experiences in HK that at the end we need to render in with a minimum bitrate. It's impossible to see it. Another level of it, it's, for example, that we realize that typing in Unity, for example, is worse than typing in a design program, a design software like Illustrator or Sketch, and then having a PNG and putting it in Unity. In theory, it will be worse because you are losing quality, but in the reality and the practice, it's not like this. And also, it happens with any image, any icon. You can design an icon and make it with these two sizes. And at the end, the one with 50 pixels, you will see it better with less detail than the others. So we need to be aware of that and just know that it's easier for our eye on the headsets to recognize this kind of resize. Okay. Also, this is related to the kind of displays we are facing, because each one of them has a different kind of brightness or quality. The info per pixel is different. So we don't have always the same screens. Or for example, in augmented reality, we don't even have screens. it's projected directly in your eyes. So what about that kind of information? So talking about this stuff with some of you, and that's for finishing yet. What if, for example, we have been talking about variable fonts. What if, for example, we try to make some kind of variable fonts that recognize the different displays for making it responsive for different displays, depending if it's for AR or for YouTube or for Samsung Gear. It could be, for example, a solution, okay? Developing some kind of stuff like that. So that's the question I'm posing to you. If someone has any idea, or if with this feedback someone thinks about it and that, I will love to hear it. And now if you have any questions or whatever, I will love to hear them. And that's it. Thanks.